Madam Mayor, we're now streaming live.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. I appreciate that. We will call this meeting to order. No addendums tonight, correct? So we have a motion about the minutes. Diane?
First motion, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Wynn, seconded by Councillor Crevitz, that the minutes of the regular planning meeting of council dated Monday, September the 28th, 2020 be adopted.
Any questions, concerns? If not, would you call the vote, please?
Councillor Cook,
You're muted, Karen.
Councillor Cook, Councillor Crevitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Wynn,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
resolution carries.
Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none? I'm going to call on Rob Foster and Scott Trevors of Graham Scott Enns, who are going to review with us the financial statements for 2019. Welcome.
Thank you very much for welcoming me to the meeting. It's Rob Foster here, and I'll be going through the financial statements. I think in these meetings, I've found that if we wait till the end for any questions, it's sometimes the easier approach, but I will be happy to take any questions after the presentation. So I believe everyone has copies of the draft financial statements in front of them. The first page I'd like to draw your attention to is our page 2, which is the independent auditor's report. And in our opinion, the municipal's consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the municipality as at December 31st, 2019, and the results of its operations and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for public sector entities. And I do remind council that these statements, as noted, they are consolidated, so they include your proportionate share of water boards, as well as the not-for-profit housing as well. If we go forward to our page 4, which is the consolidated statement of financial position. So these are the balances as at December 31st, 2019, with comparatives for 2018. I'll go through some of the highlights as changes year over year. So as you can see, cash has gone up from 7.2 to 10 million. So this would be the general working capital of the municipality. You will note that there was funds spent, they're actually spent in 2018 with regard to the harbor funds that were not transferred until 2019. So that's where we're seeing the bulk of that change in cash. So just as a reminder, the municipality would fund numerous projects out of their own working capital initially until those the funding for those projects are recovered usually towards the end of the project. Loan receivable, so that's the original loan way back when we brought in the utility from both Belmont and Port Stanley. So that's the earth loan, and it accrued or paid $78,000 in interest for the year, similar to other years. Taxes and receivables, so you will note there is small increases both current and prior. I think this is fairly consistent with what we've seen across a number of municipalities. Not something that we need to be concerned dramatically about at the moment, but we definitely want to keep an eye on those as they do age. Accounts receivable also up. There's a note, and we'll get to those notes when we get towards the end of the statements, but accounts receivable, the increase is mostly related to HST, which would be additional capital projects in the year. Sewer water, we did take on the additional or take back from the city the billing for the Lyndhurst, as well as drains are now included in accounts receivable. I did speak to the investment, and we'll look at that in a little more detail in note 2 as well. And overall for the year, your investment in earth, their overall income was 171 on the year, less dividends that you were physically received of that of 42,000. So that gave you that net increase year over year. On the liability side, deferred revenue, so that is your obligatory reserves, development charges, harbor funds, gas tax, those type of items. There were basically draws on the development charges for approved projects in the year, as well as I noted a small amount in the current year out of the harbor funds. Accounts payable and accrued liabilities. So that would be capital projects driving that number up a little. So anything that was still occurring over the year end, as well as, the county, there was a county payments as well were late in the year being paid. We didn't have any additional new debt on the year. So our long-term debt now going from 37 down to 35 million. So our net financial debt, so our negative position did improve by approximately 4 million year over year to 22 million. Non-financial assets, so that's the largest one there being tangible capital assets. On the year, we added approximately 7.9 million in additions. We had 6.2 million in amortization and roughly $1 million write-off in capital assets, bringing us fairly close to even year over year. So that gives us a total accumulated surplus on the year of 134 million versus 130 the previous year. Our next page is our page 5. It's a statement of operations and accumulated surplus. So in this page, we do have actuals for 2019 comparable to 2018, and we do have an adjusted budget. So the adjustment to that budget is to include amortization costs. So the zero budget that the council would approve in the year has been adapted to include any depreciation claims on the tangible capital assets, as well as eliminating any reserve transfers because they're considered to be part of your surplus in PSAB accounting, which is why you'll see the surplus in the budget being 1.5 million. That's because of those adjustments. So overall property taxes slightly higher than what we had budgeted for. So SUPs were higher than our write-offs for the year. Taxes from other governments, that's your payment in lieu. User charges, that's up over the previous year as a result of, again, taking on those additional water files. So we acquired or had to purchase that water. Federal funding on the provincial side, the Ontario Community Infrastructure was the main difference year over budget, and that amount was transferred directly into the reserve, but we still have to include it under PSAB as a revenue. Contribution, so benefiting landowners and developers. So that's any municipal drain work that was done, as well as any assets assumed from a developer where you've taken on that asset after they've developed it or paid for it, and it then becomes your responsibility. Under other, so that's things such as building permits, parking, rent, those type of items are all in there. Overall, when we take into consideration some of those differences I've already talked about, most other lines were comparable to budget. On the expense side, we definitely were very comparable to budget year over year, or budget over actual. General government, protection in person, very comparable. Transportation services, there were some of the projects that the council designates as capital in nature don't meet the definition for PSAB capital, so they would be expensed in the year. And overall, we'll see the loss on disposal of tangible capital assets. So just keeping in mind, any sort of, if we totally redevelop a road, including road base and all those items are removed and replaced, that previous asset would then be written off the books. And if it hadn't been depreciated fast enough, that would create a loss, leaving us with the annual surplus for PSAB purposes of 3.5 million. Our next page, page 6. So that's a change in net financial debt. So that just takes us in with the surplus. It shows us acquisitions where we use cash, 7.8 million, adds back amortization because that's a non-cash transaction, as well as the loss and changes in inventory, giving us the overall change of 3.8 million to the positive or reduction in that debt. The next page, page 7, is a statement of cash flows, somewhat similar to the net debt, other than it takes into consideration all lines on the balance sheet. And overall, we do see that improvement in cash position of roughly $3 million. Okay, we get to speed up a little now. So going through the financial statement notes, so there was no new accounting policies in the year, so we can skip through a few pages there. If we move all the way forward to our page 13, notes 2 and 3. So note 2 is the discussion around the harbor transfer and anything related to those investments, and disclosure of any interest earned in that fund. Page 14 gives us the breakdown on the taxes receivable. So as I noted, you'll see small increases in both current and arrears. And we did discuss under the breakdown of accounts receivable with the HST and additional water receivables as well. I won't go through note 7. That's the continuity of your investment in earth. As we talked about, page 16, note 8, the obligatory reserves and the changes there. Note 11, so that is your continuity of your long-term debt. And you'll notice at the very bottom, we do show, so the 273,000 is your proportionate share of the primary water board debt. Page 18, we do disclose under note 11 here the portion that's of that debt that is to be recovered through taxes and to be recovered through user charges. I think that's a valuable information for both council and the public. We get into note 12, page 19. That's where we start to get into the detail of the tangible capital assets and where the additions and disposals were throughout the year. And just below that, the calculation of the amortization. Page 20 is the same information except for the previous year. Note 13 is also one I think is valuable for council to look at. So this does break down that 134 million of surplus. Obviously important for both council and the public to know that that isn't your operating surplus, that the bulk, that more than that amount is actually invested in tangible capital assets of 156 million. The actual year-over-year surplus is under the general revenue fund, as well as surpluses or deficits in sewer and water are listed. And under the capital fund, we had unfunded projects in 2018 that have basically all been funded in 2019. So that's also what auditors like to see, is that that capital being funded in a timely basis. So there's, we see the 169 in surplus less the debt of 35, giving us the continuity at the 134. Our page 23, note 16. So that is where we do speak to the changes in the budget for PSAB purposes. And new to the statements this year, you'll see page 25, note 18, just the subsequent event around the impacts of the COVID on the municipality subsequent to the year end, and our best guesses of those impacts. The last couple of pages are the segmented information. We usually don't spend too much time going through that. That is a disclosure requirement, but we don't usually go in much detail there. So those are the financial statements for 2019, and I'd be happy to take any questions at this point if there are any.
Thank you, Rob. Questions from council? Councillor Farrer.
During our budget process, was brought to our attention that the asset valuations from prior years were not correct, and there was going to be substantial change in those valuations. And I thought that there were meetings with the auditor in regards to that. I was just wondering how that was treated, or if it's in the financial statement somewhere and where.
So I think when it comes to tangible capital assets for municipalities, first thing we need to remember is that, back in 2009, we determined that, or the government determined that we needed to set these assets up retroactively. Councils at the time did the best they could to identify all those assets and put our best guess at what their costs were, what their amortization periods are, how we should allocate them to different components going forward. And your municipality isn't significantly different than other ones that I've both audited and spoken with. And that as time goes on, we get a better feel for what those assets are worth, how they should be amortized. And it does result in, and in some cases, the assets were completely missed in the inventory process of counting things. And as well, with the government's more focus on asset management, it's allowed municipalities to put more resources into tracking these assets in a better way, I guess we'll say, from information for the municipal purposes. So basically, what we've been, or what the industry has been doing, as we find these changes in estimates, we reflect them in the year that they have been determined, and then would adjust any amortization write-offs accordingly on a go-forward basis. So at this point, management didn't feel that they had enough information to reclassify and revalue a number of the items that they feel should be treated differently now on a go-forward basis versus how they were treated in the past. So at the point, and I think it would be next year that the plan is, at least through this year and through next year, to correct those. And we would then put those through the financial statements at that time and put any required disclosure.
Any other questions we have? Thank you very much, Rob. That was, it certainly helps and makes it a lot clearer for us.
You're very welcome. I believe there's also a audit findings letter that would be included with the package. So that's our additional stamp with relation to controls and those type of things. So you'll find that in the end, when we completed the audit, we were able to find everything we were looking for, and that there was no recommendation on changes. Obviously, Ramona's been working through getting caught up on a few things, and I think she's definitely moving everything in a positive direction.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. Go ahead, Diane, read the motion.
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Deputy Mayor Marks, that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin approve the 2019 consolidated financial statements for the Municipality of Central Elgin, and further that the Mayor be authorized to sign the 2019 audit findings letter on behalf of the municipality.
Any questions? Call the vote.
Councillor Cook? Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Wynne?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have one item under correspondence for action. Would you like to read the motion?
Certainly. The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Wynne, seconded by Councillor Rowe, whereas correspondence has been received from Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, respecting Phase 2 funding under the Federal Provincial Safe Restart Agreement. And whereas on August the 12th, 2020, Minister Clark wrote to advise the municipality of their allocation of $344,700. under Phase 1. Now therefore be it resolved that Council direct the Treasurer, Ramona Nordeman, to be prepared to apply for Phase 2 funding by the October 30th, 2020 deadline, should she deem it necessary to address COVID-19 pressures for 2020, in addition to the $344,700 that Central Elgin has already been allocated to receive.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Go ahead, Councillor Fair.
I'm just wondering, is the feeling that there will be additional funds? Does our treasurer feel that?
Go ahead, Ramona.
For you, Madam Mayor, we're not, the funding that we received, we're hoping will cover our expenses year to date. The COVID funding is directed specifically for additional COVID expenses and any losses of revenue that we've experienced. We don't expect that we're going to qualify for any Phase 2 funding, but I wanted Council to pass the resolution if we find that as we're sorting through these expenses that we're actually eligible. We don't expect that we will be. Unfortunately, it's probably geared more to larger municipalities who have transit systems, who have a lot of homes for the aged. They've got a lot more significant expenses than we've had.
Even in line with that, I was going to say the county got Phase 1 funding as well and don't believe that they will qualify for Phase 2, even though we have long-term care homes. Mr. Leach, was there something you wanted to say? That was what you, okay. Any other questions? Not, I'll ask Diane to call the vote.
Councillor Cook? Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Wynne?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Councillor Cook, we have not been able to hear you at all. There, you've now unmuted.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Hitting the wrong button. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just want to make sure you were there because it's been blank.
Yeah. Sorry, I hit the wrong control twice. I got it now. And yes, yes.
Thank you. All right, correspondence for council's information.
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Cravitz, seconded by Deputy Mayor Marks, that correspondence items number 1 through number 4 inclusive be received as information and filed.
Any questions or anything you want to raise on those 4 items of correspondence? Seeing none, would you call the vote?
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Wynne?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin?
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Okay, now we're moving on to the ward boundary review. And basically tonight, our job is to determine which of the 2 options we think should be chosen. We have received officially 2 ones in, but there was another gentleman who was very upset that he couldn't seem to get in to the meeting. He didn't know when it was and all that, but, and he was supporting section, I believe, number 2 as well, option 2. So what are your thoughts? We have 1 for option 1 that is official, and we have 1 and possibly 2 for option 2. So we didn't hear from a lot of people. Deputy Mayor Marks.
I haven't got it in front of me, but option 2, I believe, was the one that I liked. That's one that,
It should be right in your packet. It's the second attachment.
but I'm sure it hasn't changed.
Oh, it's option 2, the one that has Port Stanley as its own whole.
Yes, and then we're going to make, or I would suggest make that minor tweak, I guess, that 4 and 5 be exchanged.
Right, that we call Ward 5, the ward that is Lyndhurst and North, and we call Ward 5 the Belmont and South area, instead of as it shows option. That's option 2 with that minor change. Is that everybody? Are we?
I would move that.
All right, go ahead. Deputy Mayor Marks is moving. We need a seconder. Councillor Wynne. Would you like to read the motion, please?
Certainly, Madam Mayor, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Wynne, that council direct staff to prepare a bylaw to approve the new ward boundaries based on option number 2 as per the report entitled Ward Boundary Review, Municipality of Central Elgin, Final Report. Watson and Associates Economists Limited, in association with Dr. Robert J. Williams, dated October the 5th, 2020, as per report CAO 2020 Ward Boundary Review.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, call the vote.
Councillor Cook,
No.
Councillor Krebitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Wynne,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes,
Resolution carries.
thank you. Okay, now CAO 2120, the Elgin Area Water Supply System and Lake Huron Water Supply System. The recommendation is there. Anyone have any questions on that before I have Diane read the motion? No questions? Go ahead and read the motion then.
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Wynne, that council approve the appointment of Councillor Dennis Krebitz and Jeff Brooks, Director of Infrastructure and Community Services, to the steering committee being established by the Elgin Area Water Supply System and the Lake Huron Water Supply System to investigate and address the governance and legal status of the two water supply systems as per report CAO 2120.
Thank you. Would you call the vote, please? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Kravitz, you wish to speak?
Yeah, just on this item, there has been a few meetings already in regards to the amalgamation of the two water boards. That's what this is, the goal of this is proposed. And just for the future, I'd just like to know that every municipality does have to sign on 100% for any change to happen. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight. I'm probably going to be asking Andrew Henry to make a presentation for council, the formal presentation of what is here in the future after the meetings start. But the meetings are starting this month in October, or they were proposing them to start. So that's why we're trying to get some people appointed to the board at this time.
Thank you very much. That helps clear it up. Go ahead and call the vote then.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes?
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Wynne? Yes. Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes,
Resolution carries.
thank you. Okay, report now. This is Director of Infrastructure and Community Services, 2520 McBain Line traffic speeds. Mr. Brooks, do you wish to speak to that? I don't see on. Let's see, there he is. Sorry, Mr. Brooks, I couldn't see you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So at the last council meeting in September, council asked me to measure speeds on McBain Line after there were some concerns raised during the Jacqueline Farm subdivision discussion. So the next day, Mr. Waterman was out to put the traffic counters out on McBain, and we put them in 3 different locations. As you can see in the report, the summary, we're anywhere between 45 and just below 49 kilometers per hour are the speeds that the 85th percentile is traveling at. Attached to the report is all the raw data from the traffic counters, as well as a scoring sheet as per our traffic calming point assessment. And you can see that traffic calming would not be warranted as per the policy. So staff would suggest that traffic calming measures would not be warranted in this on McBain Line.
This certainly is a difficult one, because I also received a letter today, not just for that one, but for up on Ferguson Line there at Wellington, and the concern there with the speeding as well, which Mr. Brooks informed me is a county road, so that has to be through them. But you know, it's difficult. We lowered the speed limits They are going a little slower, I think, than they were before, but this is a tough one because a lot of people have real concern about this one. So I know it doesn't meet our criteria, but any thoughts on what we should be doing? Deputy Mayor Marks.
I've probably done more grumbling about this than anyone, and I've actually put a fair bit of thought into it, and I don't have the answer. If I had my way, I would like us to maybe invest or maybe purchase some of those. I've noticed these portable radar things, shows your speed. They're just a couple of gear clamps. They bolt them onto a post, and their sun keeps them going solar. But we could move them, 2 or 3 of them, move them around the municipality. I know that the police have them, but we could use them. They'd be ours and we move them because I think that's a bit of a deterrent. Another thing I would like us to think about, and I brought up at County Council today, is investing in some, what I call lawn signs. If my daughter lives in Summerside over there, and if there's a place, people have little lawn signs. The one that gets me is drive like your kids live here. Drive like your grandkids live here. Low cost, I'm thinking a $10 bill would cover most of the cost. Allow them to have the ratepayers to put them on their lawn or on the edge of their lawn. I'm looking small cost, but I'm wanting just these little things. It works for me. It slows me down. I don't, probably not a good idea to open up our bylaw. And it's there for a reason. I respect that, but we still continue to get a lot of complaints. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and as we discussed a bit at county, and I'll get to you in just a moment, Fiona. The little lawn signs, it's the CAA that are sponsoring them. Councillor Jones mentioned that today, and I did look at the ones because in Sparta there's several that says just slow down or drive slowly, please. And they're just little election signs on the lawns.
But we could put our own. We could buy a bunch through the county, buy a bunch, put central log on. I don't know. We could investigate it, but it might help some.
I'm assuming CAA provide them for free or something. I don't know, because there certainly are at every entrance to Sparta at the moment on both sides of the road, but I'm not sure how you go about getting them or if you can get more or what. I don't know. Mr. Brooks, do you know anything about those lawn signs?
I've seen them, and I know that there are some other municipalities where community groups have purchased them and have put them up on the side of, in front of their residents. It's something that we can look a little further into here. I don't know if there's any. I know we do have a sign bylaw. I don't know if there's anything in the sign bylaw that would be for or against posting these signs.
Councillor Wynn.
There is a program called Vision Zero. I'd gone to a workshop on it put on by the MTO and the OPP a year ago. They also have the signage, and I know London had, when I had spoken to them, because they have the signs, that I got a couple samples which I'd given to residents in the Belmont area. London had said that if we were interested, we could maybe jump on with them because they order bulk of them, which would bring down our cost considerably. So that may be something we want to look at, is partnering with another municipality so that we could look at having more of these signs printed. I do know I have information on it at home, so I can get that and forward it to Mr. Brooks so that he knows the gist of it and maybe who to contact with it. But back to the data that we received with respect to McBain. I understand residents issue with their perception of the speeds, but this is where the data proves to us that what they think they're seeing in their neighborhoods isn't actually the case. So I think, again, this is a problem we shouldn't have to deal with, because if people behaved in their vehicles the way they were supposed to, there would be no cost or any issue for any of us to have to deal with. So I think maybe along the lines of the signs as a reminder to people, but again, I hate getting into big costs for something that the problem isn't what the perception is. So again, I know I was the same way myself too. And once I started seeing the data that was provided to me, when I thought myself that speeds were much higher than what they actually were. So I have, where those areas are and they need to be dealt with, we need to deal with it. But for spending money for areas where the perception is more than what it is, I don't know if we should be, spending that type of money to fix a problem that's not actually there.
My concern has always been that this is the 85th percentile are going at this speed. It's that 15% that the people may be seeing, someone whipping down there at a much faster speed. And even one car going really fast is dangerous to children.
Exactly. But again, this is where the OPP have said to us, so education, again, is the number one thing, because it's the mass that we want to get that are going to listen. It's the odd ones that aren't. So education is what we need to be doing with the residents. Again, it's in their own neighborhoods. So if residents are feeling comfortable with speeding like that in their own neighborhoods, that's for the area to deal with. Again, as we had stated, the online reporting, the signs, drive like your kids live in the area, because they probably do. So that type of thing, so that residents are educated on it. But I don't know about purchasing radar signs to put up in those areas, only because with our police committee group, we purchased not the portable ones. But there's also issues with those too. As much as any company will tell you it's a great sign and you can use it and they're solar powered, we haven't had either of ours work perfectly since we've got it, and the costs that have been attributed to fixing them. So they do work. So I don't know that spending that type of money again is worthwhile. So we really need to have some sort of way of educating people driving in their own neighborhoods so that they understand the perception of what other people are seeing and the safety aspect of it. I guess it irritates me that we have to have these conversations because it's your own neighborhood you're driving through, and that there's no respect for it. Bothers me, but things like radar signs, I don't think are going to solve those issues.
Mr. Brooks, we did ask at one meeting here that we asked you to look at the median, the temporary median ones like there are on Carlow Road in Port Stanley. The county have put up that say 40 kilometers an hour or 50. So it's right in the middle of the road. You can't miss it. And I think you were going to come back and see what those costs would be for those for us.
Yeah, I had a look into those signs. We set up some signs on McBain line back in 2018, and we posted 6 there were 3 locations where we narrowed the traffic, and that included 6 cones per location. The cost per location is around $1,200. So we would have spent in the 3 locations on McBain roughly $3,600 to implement the traffic calming there.
I'm talking about the single sign that goes in the middle of the road, right on the dotted line, that just screws in and you take it out in the winter for winter maintenance, obviously. But I've certainly found them very effective on Carlo. I think I see a lot of people now slowing down that never used to slow down there. That was the one I thought you were going to just check and see what the cost would be of those. There are no cones or anything involved or narrowing the street.
Well, I think to answer your question, that sign is roughly $500 or $600.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Leach?
Madam Mayor, I think the issue is the narrowing of the street or the feeling of the narrowing of the street, so that Carlo is narrow because you've got a gravel shoulder on the side. McBain is actually very, very wide. So even if you were to put markers down the middle, it wouldn't feel to the driver any narrower.
It's because it has parking on both sides?
Parking on both sides, and it was built to a collector standard. So that's the difference between Carlo.
Could the road be marked so that it shows the marking for parking only? I don't know. That's just an idea. That would certainly make it appear narrower. Deputy Mayor Marks.
I know a couple of people live on Balaclava and they actually will park their cars on the road. That is actually a deterrent. It's like a bump out, if you will.
Yep.
And McBain would be like that. Calder Ave would be like that. What else was I going to say? I forget. I forgot it.
Councillor Wynne.
The other thing I was thinking with regards to the signs, the MTO has had in the past, and I haven't seen yet this year if they opened it up, the Road Safety Challenge grant application. So even if that's being offered again this year or early next year, if that's maybe something that our community policing committees could look at applying for and purchasing signs through that as well.
Right. If we looked at signs, if we had, Mr. Brooks look at approaching London and seeing about the signs, key thing is, does it fit with our sign bylaw? We certainly have them on the roadsides right now, and they're like little election signs, and they're sponsored by the CAA. But I know they are certainly, I don't know if it's CAA customers who've taken them and put them up or who's responsible for them. I've just seen them up. We do have quite a few of them in Sparta right now. Deputy Mayor Marks?
I did remember what I was trying to think of before. I've been told that on McBain, the speed limit sign is fairly close to Wellington. And then the rest of McBain has no speed limit sign on it. And it's been suggested that if we had 1 or 2 more, it'd be more of a reminder, because if people turn the corner, they may miss that and really don't know what the speed limit is. I know that's sounds lame even to me, but I'm relaying what ratepayers tell me.
Mr. Brooks, is that possible to just put another 40-kilometer-an-hour sign or 2 along McBain as it progresses to remind people?
It's certainly possible to do so. However, if we do McBain, we may be doing every other neighborhood that we've introduced the neighborhood speed zones into. So when that came about in 2019, I believe it was agreed that we would put a 40-kilometer-an-hour sign entering a neighborhood and exiting the neighborhood. So every one of our neighborhoods throughout the municipality is signed in this fashion. And it's easy to go out and put a couple more out on McBain, but are we also going to be now putting more out on Kettle Creek Drive and West Street and Belmont and every other neighborhood? And then it becomes a costly endeavor.
The only reason I mentioned McBain is that seems to be the area we've had more complaints from than any other. And Centennial. Yeah, but Centennial's a county road, so. But I did see something, Mr. Perry, you might want to have your people on Centennial write the county a letter, because I noticed that in the town of Stratfordville, it's 40 kilometers an hour down the main street, and that's county road. I'm sorry, someone back here had their hand up. Councillor Kravitz and then Deputy Mayor Marks.
I just want to say, we have our speed, what is this, like the calming assessment in place. And I think it's a fairly good policy we have. Looking at these three reports, we lowered this area from a 50 kilometer down to a 40 kilometer zone roughly a year ago. And looking at these three reports, 94%, 88%, and 95% are under 50 in the 40 kilometer to 50 kilometer zone. If you go up to one level higher, under 60 kilometers for all three reports is 99% of all vehicles in all three reports. So there's only 1% that is actually going higher than 60 kilometers. I think it is a matter of perception in this area. And I think our policy is sound that we have, and I don't think any further action should be taken on this road. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Marks, you.
I don't know if it's appropriate now, but at the county council today, I believe is roads in Dunwich.
Iona.
And they're,
On the edge of Dunwich and Southold.
they were successful in getting the county to agree to lower the speed limit. So then I threw out there that maybe Central Elgin should petition the county to lower the speed limit on East Road. We haven't talked about East Road, but certainly it has become so built up. And again, that's a road I constantly hear about speeding.
I'm wondering if we should just discuss that under new business and have it specific, because I know both Tom and I agreed that we would bring that up tonight because that is a concern. So let's deal with that under new business so that we can at least finish this specific report.
Could we include Centennial Ave in that discussion in new business?
Certainly. Would you like to read the motion, Diane?
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Kravitz, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that report ICS 2520 McBain line traffic speeds be received as information.
Call the vote.
Councillor Cook,
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Wynne,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
and Mayor Mark.
Yes,
Resolution carries.
thank you. Now the garbage bag tag program. Jeff, do you want to speak to this? Or does the report pretty well tells us what you want, but is there anything you'd like to add?
Nothing further. It's we come every year to council as per council's policy, requesting that bag tags, the number of bag tags being distributed is reduced by 5%. So reducing the number of bag tags in 2021 would result in 58 for residential, 133 for commercial, and 28 for farm properties.
And also the distribution you're proposing in this one, that staff will just hand deliver these other than in Port Stanley, is that?
We priced out having, due to the complications with COVID, typically we would set up distribution centers at the arenas in Belmont and Port Stanley, and as well distribute them at the office. Due to complications with COVID this year, and gathering limits, we're looking for alternatives. One alternative we looked at was mailing them out to the entire municipality. The cost for that was around $13,000, I believe. So we can hand deliver those with our own staff for roughly $2,500, with the exception of Port Stanley. Port Stanley is a little different because of the number of seasonal residents there. So to make things easy, we would go ahead and mail them out to all residents in Port Stanley, and then hand deliver the tags to the front doors of every other resident in the municipality on their garbage day.
Wow. The one thing I would say is I do remember Port Stanley, when we originally mailed garbage tags every year, it was always Port that seemed to lose some. People would claim they didn't receive them. Don't know if it was the post office fault or people, the landlords not giving it to the tenants or what. Councillor Rowe.
So just about the quantity first, I would suggest that we do not reduce this number by 5% for 2021, simply because we don't know what's going on with COVID. I do believe that a lot of people have been in the office to pick up more bag tags. I do get quite a few calls about this topic as well. And the commercial businesses, because they haven't been able to be open a lot of the time as usual, I doubt that they're using that same quantity. Now, anything could happen next year, but I don't feel like going any lower than 61 is a very good idea. In fact, I would probably go back to something like the 2018, 2019 levels.
Councillor Fair.
I also feel the way Councillor Rowe is. I'm getting a lot of requests, a lot of people running out of tags. I think it's getting down too low, especially COVID in Lyndhurst and the new Lyndhurst and in Eastwood. There are always people asking for garbage tags. I would really like to, as Councillor Rowe has suggested, even go back to 2018, because too many people are running out of tags and having to buy them, and that's less than half of what they were. Well, not less than half, but it's much reduced to what it was when it was originally 104, I believe, per year. I just think people are really having a hardship trying to cut their garbage down to that much.
I think the whole idea was we were trying to get it down to one bag of garbage per week. We had agreed we would go down 5% a year until we got to 52 bags per household. I realize COVID has made it more difficult for people, but that's just my lifestyle, I guess. I use maybe 10 tags a year, so I'm happy to give some of my tags away, but I just don't buy anything. All my stuff is recyclable. I don't have much garbage at all. Deputy Mayor Marks.
I'm quite happy to hold the limit, support what Councillor Rowe has said. Like, yeah, we have improved. It was an admirable goal to reduce garbage. We've done that. I don't think this is year to tighten the belt yet. I am quite comfortable, leave it the way it is. And I will perhaps send some that are looking for tags maybe your way, Mrs.
Yeah. That's only 3 tags less. Yes.
I like you, I make sure that I purchase what can be recycled so that my garbage is much less. I guess my only thought is that with people working from home now, children being home doing online learning, that there may be contributing factors to why people would be having more garbage. So I could see us making an exception for the 2021, but to get ourselves back on track again as soon as we possibly can, because I like the idea of going down to 1 tag a week.
And I think we're looking at bins, so that this may be last year that we do tags in that sense. But, I mean, I don't object, but I'm sorry, but 3 tags, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference to most people. Mr. Leach.
Council may find this helpful. Ms. Nordeman pulled the numbers about how much we received in revenue from garbage tag sales. So for this year, $13,217. So that's they compared to last year, which was $12,024. So we have already sold more than in previous years. Number we've sold has gone up each year with the reduced number of tags, but certainly this is sort of leapt ahead. The last 2 years, actually the last 3 years, really we're within $1,000 of each other, $12,000 to $11,000. this year. We have sold more tags.
So what is your will? What number do you want? I had two suggestions: freeze it at the current rate or go back to 2018 rate. Councillor Kravitz.
Just in lieu of the information that Mr. Leach provided, I think it would be wise just to bump it up a little bit this year. I was in favor of getting rid of tags altogether. And then I was very happy to go to the bag a week suggestion, which is a goal that is something that is easily attainable, one bag of garbage a week. And it's unfortunate that we're producing more garbage. It does cost the municipality more money with the more tags that we issue at the landfill site. But seeing the numbers increase from 12,000 to 15,000 in 1 year, I'd be happy to go back to 2019 levels of 64.
So I would make the motion then to go back to the 2019 levels for 2021.
You, seconder?
I'll second it. And, you know, the people can still reduce their garbage. And if you don't use a tag, throw the tag away.
Right.
Give it away.
Recycle it.
Yeah, but you know,
Recyclable.
but you don't have to. We're not encouraging people. If you don't need it, give it to a neighbor or whatever. But there are people who do need it.
Okay, the motion has been made, yes.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I do have a motion prepared. I'm just wondering if we can do a friendly amendment to what was recommended.
Sure.
That would be, I do have a mover of Councillor Wynn, and then the seconder is Deputy Mayor Marks. Okay, so my understanding from council's conversation is you would like to go to the 2019
Numbers, yeah.
numbers. Okay, so
64.
58 would be 64. The 133 would be 147. And the 28 would be 30.
And
Councillor Kravitz.
And just at this time, this is something, the bins, it's a good time that we do go to the bin program, and something that we should look at in the future. And this is one of the reasons why.
And this is why we're doing this year too. The tags could well be our last year. Okay, would you read the motion, please, then?
Yes. The motion reads, moved by Councillor Wynn, seconded by Deputy Mayor Marks, that council confirms that it wishes to proceed with the garbage bag tag program for solid waste for 2021, and that council confirms for 2021, residential properties will be provided 64 tags, commercial properties be provided 147 tags, and farm properties be provided 30 tags. And that council direct that for 2021, municipal staff will deliver garbage tag packages to all ratepayers in the municipality, with the exception of Port Stanley, where packages will be mailed via Canada Post due to the number of seasonal residences as per report ICS 2620.
Call the vote.
Councillor Cook,
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Wynn,
Yes,
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes,
Resolution.
thank you. Okay, ICS 2720, the Colburn Street lighting. Do you want to add anything to this report, Mr. Brooks?
I have nothing to add to the report.
One question I had with this is, it's because of Earth that we're losing our hydro poles. They're the ones taking them out, so we're having to put all new poles. I agree totally with doing the decorative lighting that we already have throughout Port Stanley. I just wondered if Earth, if there was any chance that they might share in the cost of replacing the poles, that if we paid half and they paid half, we would pay for the lighting, the style of lighting. But I'm just wondering, because obviously if they're taking all the poles out, there's going to be no lights on that street. That becomes an issue. We certainly have to have lights on there. So I just didn't know if Earth had been approached about that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, Earth has not been approached to gauge their level of interest in paying half of the cost for the poles. I can ask.
Yeah, it's a different case than in Sparta because the poles are still there. We did new lights there, but the poles, the old poles are still there, and that was initiated by us, not by Hydro One. I'm curious to see if they would consider, even if just a flat donation or something toward the poles. Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry, Councillor Kravitz.
Could we perhaps send a letter on behalf of council to Earth requesting and give an explanation that since the lights are being removed, that it's something that we did not budget and would like some assistance in?
Okay. What are the thoughts of the rest of you?
Never hurts to ask.
Doesn't hurt to ask. They can always say no. Mr. Leach, what would you advise? Just,
I mean, certainly you can ask. I think the chances are like negligible, because it's not just Port Stanley. They have numerous municipalities representing, so they're dealing with this, situation in numerous communities. So if they were to start funding streetlights, then and that wouldn't be a regulatory function of a hydro utility. So that would have to come out of the sort of the business side of things. That's a huge undertaking. So in some respects, it's fortunate they do this. We wouldn't have been, Hydro One was burying streetlights or some hydro lines, then it would have been a completely different situation in Sparta. But certainly it doesn't hurt to ask. They probably can provide an answer and probably have a policy regarding that.
yeah, and they may very well turn us down, but it probably doesn't hurt to. Just the fact that because they are taking it underground and taking the poles out, that we don't have any lights without installing new poles and lights.
And since we've already paid for the lights once, we're going to pay for the street lights a second time now.
Different lights.
Taking down, so.
Just like the ones even in Sparta that they're going to store. Well, now we're going to have quite a few more to store from Port Stanley because this is even longer section.
Maybe a cable burying surcharge.
Yeah.
One answer, Madam Mayor, is they may say the poles are there, they're yours, you've got the lights on them, and everything will be underground, but you have to run the wires up the wooden poles.
Outside.
Mr. Perrin, would you like to speak to this?
I guess it never hurts to ask, but what it may do is it may force the local utility company to revisit their policy, because right now and in the past, we've been permitted to install streetlights on their distribution poles. So they may take a tack that if they're going to be required to pay for street lighting, if they bury power distribution systems in the future, that they may rethink their practice or their policy whereby they allow municipalities to install streetlight heads on their existing hydro poles. So that could actually result in an increased cost to the municipality in the future, whereby there'll be an overhead power distribution line, and if we want to install streetlights, they'll be potentially suggesting that we need to come up with our own poles to provide street lighting.
The poles that are there at this time, Mr. Perrin, do they belong to the Earth Corporation, those wooden poles that are there?
Yes. Like every other wooden pole in Port Stanley and Belmont, all those poles are owned by Erie Thames Power, and any streetlights that are on it, they are there with the permission of Erie Thames Power, and we don't pay any rental fees or anything like that for the use of those poles.
Thoughts of council? Do you still want to write the letter or not? Councillor Fair?
I would say yes to write the letter, but also Mr. Leach suggested possibly seeing if they would just leave the poles there. If we
Yeah, but we'd have to run the wires all the way up the pole.
would have to do that.
Yeah.
But we'd have to do it anyway.
No, not, yeah, I suppose we'd be, Mr. Perrin, how would we be getting power up the other poles? Internally, Mr. Brooks is responding.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I pose this question to Earth in case council did ask. Those are end-of-life poles. Those were installed in the 50s. So they would be happy to transfer those over to us at little to no cost. However, we would bear the expense of taking them down in a year or two when they need to be replaced.
Councillor Rowe.
So I would just suggest to go ahead with the work as it was described. Those poles are, many of them, if not all of them, are on quite a lean. They are old if they're from the 50s. They just need to go. So let Earth do what they need to do.
Everyone, is that the consensus? You just want to pass the motion as it exists? Karen?
Yeah, I agree with Colleen and I guess everybody else. I've seen those poles. They're definitely leaning on the last leg, and just even for safety reasons, I think we certainly want to push forward and get that fixed up.
Thank you. I guess we're going with the motion as it stands. So do you have a mover and a seconder? Thank you. Go ahead.
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Cravitz, that report ICS 2720 Colburn Street lighting be received as information, and that council states it is committed to the Colburn Street lighting project in the 2021 capital budget at an estimated cost of $275,000.
To call the vote.
Councillor Cook,
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Wynn,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
and Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The Director of Fire Services and the Treasurer, they're looking at a request for a pumper tanker. Anybody want to say anything more about it? There's Chris. Chris, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just to clarify, if you remember back in the spring when we did budget, we had $660,000 allocated for the truck, and I needed to accommodate the truck's height in the doors. I had to raise the doors at Union Fire Station. So I was estimating it, I wasn't sure, around 75 to 100,000. Well, the quote came in at 40,000 for the doors. And the truck was come in at 50,000 or 500,000, sorry. So considerable savings there. So I just wanted to clarify, to remind everybody that it wasn't the 660. We actually used some for the doors, and we still have a surplus of 120.
That's great. Good news. Councillor Rowe?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just had a question on the bids, I guess. Normally, don't we see the value for each of the bids on the report? In this case, it's only just for the one that is being recommended. So not suggesting that it's not the right one to take, but do we know what the second bid was?
I'll let Ramona speak to that.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. This it was a request for proposal and not a tender. And I know that traditionally council has seen all the amounts for the bids. That does cause us some issues with people who are actually doing the tendering and making the bids and bidding on our proposals. So this was a request for proposal, so it was a point system, not necessarily the lowest price. In this particular case, the company with the lowest price did also have the most points. So in this case, between the two proponents, we do have the lowest price and the highest number of points for that proposal.
Thank you. Would you like to read the motion, please?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. The motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Cravitz, that council accept the proposal of Darch Fire Inc. for 2020-21 supply of one 3,000 US gallon pumper tanker in the amount of $493,863.82 plus all applicable taxes as per report DFS 2320.
Would you call the vote?
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Wynn?
Yes.
Counselor Rowe,
Yes.
and Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you. And the next one is DFS 2620, property tax arrears and tax sale process. Ramona, do you wish to speak to this?
Yeah, since council raised the issue about how far behind we were since our most recent property tax sale process, that was raised last year already. So that was something that was on our radar. Our property tax coordinator has been watching our arrears list and chasing things down fairly diligently. He has reduced the number of properties on that list from 104 properties from at the beginning of 2020. And now we're down to just around 80 properties. So he's done an analysis of the properties that are in arrears. Most municipalities, excepting very, very large cities, would get a company to assist with the property tax sales process because it is very, very regulated. There's a lot of timeframes attached to that, and it's extremely time consuming. It will be extremely time consuming for our property tax coordinator, even with that level of assistance. And those fees are collected back as part of the tax sale process. So we're just providing the information for the report for council's information so that you know it's on our radar and that we're preparing to go forward with this in 2021.
I certainly appreciate this because when you even look at the lower number of 82 properties, it's still over, well over $1 million that we're out at this point. So I appreciate this report and certainly the analysis on low, medium, and high risk and which ones will make. It's a difficult time. I know it's difficult for some people, but some people we found in the past, we had people that just didn't bother paying if we didn't do anything. And most of them will just suddenly pay once they realize that there's going to be something happen if they don't. Or they'll work out an agreement where they can pay a bit each time. Any questions or concerns on this one? If not, would you read the motion, please?
Madam Mayor, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Wynn, that report DFS 2620, property tax arrears and tax sale processes be received as information, and that staff be directed to prepare a request for proposal to find a suitable company to assist the municipality with the tax sale process.
Would you call the vote?
Councillor Cook,
Yes.
Councillor Trevors,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks.
Yes.
Councillor Wynn,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe. Yes. And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Director of Asset Management, dog licensing program changes. Lloyd, do you wish to speak to this?
Nothing further to the report, Madam Mayor, unless Ms. Nordeman wants to speak to it on some points. It's a joint report.
Thank you. Mrs. Nordeman?
I guess overall, we're looking at how we can provide residents services to our residents online and online payment options and for which types of services we can do this. So we're starting with changes to the dog tag system as our first rollout of that initiative. And if that works successfully, we hope to be able to add other services that our residents can do purchase and payment online.
Councillor Wynn?
As a dog owner, I love this. Just one question I have. My dog likes to lose her tag quite often. In that case, am I buying a whole new tag again, like each time? Could be good revenue for us just on me alone, but just wondering, am I going to be spending that same amount maybe 2-3 times a year?
So through you, Madam Mayor, the licensing fee is an annual fee. The actual cost for replacement of the dog tag is currently set at $5.
Oh.
So that fee can be reviewed.
Oh, I think that's great. That's great. Thank you.
The one thing I will say that I remember one of our staff used to recommend when you got it, don't use the little S hook that hooks on, because that does not last. My dog would scratch themselves and it'd be gone the day I put it on them.
Yes.
So we need a much better system. And that time they, like a key ring, you know, where you have you feed the thing around, that works much better. That's what I did. I don't have a dog at the moment. My dog died a year ago, but I like the idea of being able to pay it online and one tag. Other than that, I'm like Councillor Wynn, my dog certainly lost their tag many, many times.
Quite often.
Any other comments? Would you read the resolution, please?
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Wynn, that report AMDS 2520 proposed amendments to the Central Elgin Dog licensing system be received as information, and that council supports implementing a permanent dog tag licensing system to begin in 2021.
Call the vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Wynn?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Okay, the Heritage Central Elgin have sent a recommendation that, and this is at the request of the property owner. So just so you know that John and Lois Smith feel very keen on, this is something that the Smith family have done, this preserving of the Selburn Mill, which was just north of Port Stanley, where the fish hatchery is now, and the two log cabins as early structures of early Ontario, even though they weren't originally in Central Elgin. They just want to see them preserved. They've worked very hard to, I was actually at the cabin raising in 1962, I was 14 at the time, but I was present. I was helping with the food. That was what I did, but they are very interesting. And I will say that the Smiths have invited you as a council or any of Heritage Central Elgin, and most of Heritage Central Elgin have been through the mill at least. But if you have never been to the mill, and they would love to have you come, you would love to see it. It has so many of the working parts all being used. The pulleys, the step is still the millstone, one of the millstones. And it's a totally open concept below, and you can see where the things went. The second story does have it split into bedrooms, but the third story is wide open concept again. So it's fascinating, and you're welcome. It's so full of antiques because both John, who is the current owner, and his parents before were real collectors of early Ontario memorabilia. So it would be well worth going to see both the log cabins, which are a lovely home now, but they're still these two log cabins just built on two levels side by side and then attached together.
How would we arrange that?
I can certainly arrange that if you can give me some dates when you'd want to go, because John put right in his request that he would be very happy to show everyone through.
Send that to you then. Thank you.
We want to determine tonight even some dates we could before we leave, and then I could ask John which ones fit. Councillor Rowe.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So what are the ramifications, if any, if these buildings are declared heritage buildings? I'm assuming it's just for the buildings themselves, and so if the buildings ever did get moved to a different property, they would still be heritage buildings, or how?
When we designate a heritage building, it's the exterior we designate. We don't designate the interior unless they request that. There's only one building we have, and that's the old store in Sparta that has the pressed tin ceiling and the original counters and shelves and everything. And that person wanted the interior of the main room designated, so that was. But usually it's just the exterior. It means that if they want to change it in any way, they go through the Municipal Heritage Committee, who will then recommend to council, yes, what they're proposing fits with the heritage of the building, or no, they would be discouraged. The Municipal Heritage Committee, which has 3 reps from Port Stanley, does try to work with the person and encourage them. We've never had a problem. We've never had anyone complain, but that's it. And plus there is an easement agreement they can sign, which says that it basically says that they will keep the buildings in good repair. And as long as they do, they get a tax relief of 30% for designated buildings to allow them, it gives them a chance to save enough money to help keep buildings in good repair. Because I'll tell you, I know with the tea room in Sparta, they just painted it again this summer. And I mean, her 30% tax break does not pay for the paint on that building every time she has to paint it because they're clapboard. You have to paint them about every 3 or 4 years. So anyway, these are the two. We have two here together. They're separate motions, but the 2 log cabins are one, and then the Selburn Mill is the other one. But we'll look at the 2 log cabins first. Any questions or concerns you have, or Mr. Leach, anything you wish to say? Did you read the motion then?
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Cravitz, that council direct staff to give notice as prescribed in section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act of council's intention to designate the entire exterior of the buildings at 191 Braeside Street as a property of cultural heritage value interest as recommended by the Heritage Central Elgin Committee.
Did you call the vote?
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Wynne?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Questions about the mill? This really is, I tried to include when I sent this in a current picture, which we took, and then a picture from the 50s, and then the original mill just before it was moved. To read the motion then, please.
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Cravitz, seconded by Councillor Wynne, that council direct staff to give notice as prescribed in section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act of council's intention to designate the entire exterior of the building at 181 Braeside Street as a property of cultural heritage value or interest as recommended by the Heritage Central Elgin Committee.
Call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Yes.
Councillor Wynne?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. I'll go to bylaws, and before we leave tonight, if you can tell me dates where you might like to go or that you're available or that we have, I can email John right from here and let him know that those are the dates, and that way we can get back to you very quickly. How many would be interested in seeing them? Okay. Okay, the bylaws.
First motion on the bylaws, your worship, moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, Councillor Rowe, that bylaws 2520, 2521, 2522, 2523, 2524, 2525, and 2526 be taken collectively.
Call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Wynne?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Next motion.
Second motion on the bylaws, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Wynne, seconded by Councillor Cravitz, that bylaws 2520, 2521, 2522, 2524, 2525, and 2526 be read a first and a second time.
Call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Wynne?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Final.
Last motion on the bylaws, your worship, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Cravitz, that bylaws 2520, 2521, 2522, 2523, 2524, 2525, and 2526 be read a third time and finally passed.
Head and call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Wynne?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Resolution carries.
Okay, we don't have any public notice or resolution, so new business. And the first one we want to talk about is requesting the county with speed limits on either East Road and you want to include Centennial in there because it's another county road. Our concern with East Road is it's 50 to a certain point, then it goes to 60, and then for a very short distance, it goes to 80 and then you hit a stop sign, which makes no sense at all, especially with all the new builds down there. Deputy Mayor Marks.
Just wondering, this will be a request of county council, so there's no guarantee. The Iona one, they're doing it because there's been changes there, and East Road, there's been changes simply because of the buildup. I'm wondering if we should keep Centennial separate. If we get this one, then go back. I don't want them to say, hey, we're getting too many of these things. Let's listen to staff when we get denied, or they make it hard for us. But I think there's a very good reason with East Road simply because of the changes. It's more built up and more urban. If we get that, then I would suggest that we take Centennial back as a separate issue, rather than we may get lumping too many and they say this is too many.
Well, and it's different in the sense that Centennial is already 50 the whole way, and you would like to see it move down to 40, I'm assuming. Go ahead, Councillor Fair.
Yes, and Centennial, when you say about changes, Centennial is a complete different, because we don't have just our local traffic. We've got all the traffic from the south end of St. Thomas, all the new subdivisions. So I wouldn't be against that. I think that's a good recommendation. We're completely different than these other ones that you're talking about.
But there certainly are changes because there's a whole new subdivision south of you that go up through there to Highway 3.
Not suggesting we forget about it, but let's see if we can accomplish one, and because it need 5 votes. We've only got 2 here, so we have to.
I have no problem with that.
What do we want to recommend? That it be 50 the full distance? Because the new fire hall will now be right at the end of it as well, in that what is now the 80 zone. That'll be the entrance to the fire hall. So certainly that would make sense to change it. I know they didn't go along with this when we asked changes on Sunset Road going in, because we wanted that lowered to 60 further out, but they did not agree to that. But they were certainly receptive to changing the ones on Iona Road in Iona Station and Iona.
If you go back up to Lyndhurst, by Lyndhurst Variety, and come on down through the roundabout and up through Sunset, out here, like this morning, down by the sanitation plant, there was a radar set up there, and I think it's 50.
It is 50.
And they check that quite often. So to me, I would go with 50.
So it would be our request then to make it 50 throughout that road.
It's only a couple miles long.
Well, the 80 is very short, the distance. Just after Dexter Line to the stop sign, which is not very far. Is that council's wish then to request that it be 50 right to where the East Road meets? From East Road, where it is already 50, all the way through to where it meets Sunset Road?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor Marks? Sorry, we'll give Ann a chance to write it here. Then I'll get someone to second it.
Thanks.
Yeah, you want to get busy.
Your word much longer.
No.
That's all right.
They call me anyway.
You can just say all of East Road because it is just that length, isn't it? That's all East Road is. I need a seconder now for the motion. Councillor Rowe. Do you read the motion?
See if this is adequate, Your Worship. Motion reads moved by Deputy Mayor Marks, seconded by Councillor Rowe. Council directs staff to send correspondence to the County of Elgin requesting that the speed limit on all of East Road be changed to 50 kilometers per hour.
Would you call the vote, please?
Councillor Cook,
No.
Councillor Cravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Wynne,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
and Mayor Martin.
Yes,
Resolution carries.
thank you. Is there any other new business? Councillor Rowe and then Mr. Leach is going to.
Just, thank you, Madam Mayor, just a comment or whatever, but most are aware, but I continue to get requests about the fence that's in the water on Little Beach. I know I've been exchanging emails and such with various people, but just to let everybody know that it is an issue that needs to be resolved somehow, some way.
It's been a problem for several years now, Mr. And it isn't as much in the water now as it was because the lake level has gone down. So part of it is out of the water again. Part is still in. That makes it harder too. But I agreed with you with your comment about just property standards bylaw. Because they are all tipping and twisting and the fence is all twisted up. Mr. Leach, did you wish to speak to that?
I guess first of all, the municipality doesn't have the authority to remove the fence. It's not our property, and we'd basically be stealing the fence if we removed it. That's the legal advice we've had. It may fall under the jurisdiction of MNRF or the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority, but it's a lower priority, I would expect, for those particular agencies. We could take a look at the lot maintenance, whether it would even apply or not, because I think typically the lot maintenance speaks to lands, but it may have a reference to being in the water. But there really is not an easy sort of resolution, or as easy as maybe some people would like it to be, to the situation. It was erected by the homeowner, the property owner. It's been damaged, and this winter may damage it some more. But it's not, an easy resolution, because the ownership sort of technically is changing from, the Crown to the private property owner as the water levels change. So there's a number of complex issues at work here. But we'll follow up and can report back to Councillor Rowe and Council.
Thank you.
I think the other thing too is that the owners, because of COVID, were not able to return to Canada and Australia at the time. So the owners of that property have not been here. You may notice there's a car parked in their driveway with flat tires. Thank you. Any other new business? Mr. Leach.
Madam Mayor, I was going to mention that earlier in the correspondence information, there was correspondence from Karen Vecchio and the Honorable Jeff Yurek about sort of a parade in the park type of thing, or that kind of parade. But the control group has received word that there is some groups in both Port Stanley and Belmont looking at the feasibility of, rather than having a parade where people come to it, but taking the parade to the community. So that's something very small with perhaps a float and a fire truck or two that would travel up and down all of the streets in the particular community in the spirit of Christmas. It's still being developed. The sort of scope and rules around that in terms of, distribution of candy, anything like that might traditionally go with a parade are still outstanding. It would need to get some direction from public health on that, but wanted to make at least council aware. The emergency control group that just became aware of this in the last week or so, but to make council aware that there is this possibility and investigation from some volunteers looking at doing this.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
I may have missed that, but so is this that individual homeowners are being encouraged to do different things so people can drive around? Or is this going to be in a fixed location so that people drive into it, into the park or something?
This one that St. Thomas is and the members of Parliament and MPP are offering is in Pinafore Park. Or they
Yes, okay. That's
do that, yeah, and they've said that any community can bring something and people would be encouraged to come through for free. It's just a chance to, you know, give children a chance to see Christmas floats, etc. But there would be no, you know, everyone would stay in their car, etc. But I know that in both Belmont and Port Stanley, some of them are looking at, I think the fire trucks and someone else are looking at it in Belmont, driving around throughout the whole community, playing Christmas music or doing something to, you know,
The chief
Christmas spirit.
would like to say something.
Go ahead, Chris.
Muted.
You're muted, Chris.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just to add to Mr. Leach. So what the plan is the Santa Claus float will go around in the villages, and there will be a few fire. All the residents will be staying at their driveways, at the end of their driveways. I'm recommending that we don't have any candy or anything of that nature, but we'll wait and see what health does say. But this is the plan we've got with Belmont and Port Stanley. Once it was brought up at our chiefs meeting, they said that probably an interest down here as well, so in Port Stanley. So we're thinking that maybe we'll discuss that with them. So that's where we're at right now. So it's up to council and the community control group to see what they want to do, I guess.
The only thought I'd have is I'm sure that both Belmont and Port Stanley attract people beyond those villages to those parades. So, you know, people would have to work out how they could watch it when they're not on the route. Councillor Wynn.
For July 1st, we had, I guess the exact same thing. And I thought it went really well. People were just in their yards. The parade went all through town. There was lots on social media asking where they were, how long before they got to their neighborhoods. But it just seemed to work out very, very well. So I hope that the same can happen for Christmas. It would be nice to still have our parades.
Thank you. Is there any other new business? If not, we have one last motion. Would you read the final motion?
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Wynn, seconded by Deputy Mayor Marks, that the regular meeting of council dated Tuesday, October the 13th, 2020, be adjourned at 9:20 p.m. and the next regular planning meeting of council be scheduled for Monday, October the 26th, 2020.
Vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Cravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Wynn?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes. Mayor Marks and I went through a 5-hour meeting this morning.
Hours ago.
Yeah. Started at 9 this morning. 2.
Down.